when you have these dynamics that you're bringing this energy to your marriage, this feminine energy to your marriage, it skyrockets attraction. And when it's not there, it plummets attraction. It also really draws your husband toward you. I mean, that is what that's the way God created us, with these beautiful gifts, and they're different, and they go together so beautifully.
Mompreneurs, it's not business, baby. It's business and babies. Whether you're rocking the carpool line, building your business during nap time, or dreaming big after bedtime, we've got the tools, tips, and strategies to help you grow your business. Grab a snack, your headphones, and enjoy this time with us, because mom life and boss life deserve balance.
Cara has been married for 18 years to her husband, Adam. They have 5 children and live on a homestead in Missouri. Their marriage journey has included significant challenges and remarkable joys. After many years of healing her own marriage, God placed on her heart to help other couples. She empowers women to transform stressed marriages into loving connections through God's love and femininity. Find joy in your marriage again with her guides, podcast, masterclasses, and marriage course. Cara, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
I'm also excited. So, what inspired you to start The Way for Love? So tell us a little bit about you and your journey.
Yeah. So, as you just shared, like, my husband and I have struggled with our marriage from day one. We really, even our honeymoon. I mean, I'm not kidding when I say day one. And I always knew, like, okay, well, we must be together for a reason more than just, to grow in our own marriage. Like, we have learned so many things. We have had to grow in tremendous ways. And God's got to be using it for something more than just us. And so we were waiting, just waiting to see what he wanted to do with it. And it's a funny story. We were driving through the mountains. God just spoke to both of us so clearly that he wanted us to create a marriage course with all the things that we had learned, kind of like a really great one-stop shop for having a really strong, healthy marriage and healing the things that you maybe came into marriage with, or have things that have happened in your marriage. And so we started there with our Healing Your Marriage course. And then we also offer coaching for couples, or, I coach wives. My husband will coach the husband. I coach femininity, and he helps them with masculinity and other things that they're going through. So yeah, it's been an incredible journey. It really has.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you're making a huge impact on other people's lives. So I'm excited to dive in. And it's such a cool story that, you came out of, like, you both had that call on you. So that's pretty impressive, right? Sometimes there's only one person that hears from, but you both heard from God and, like, hey, this is the direction that we're going through. So how did you start to gain clients, or what did you do, right? Like, how did you go actually all in with now this new idea? And God told you, laid it on your heart, hey, do courses and start coaching people. Where did you start?
Mm-hmm. Well, I had already been an adrenal health coach, so I've been life coaching for many years. So that's not a new thing for me. And I already had created a course. I kind of took the lead in some of that, but we brainstormed together, decided what we really wanted to include in the course. And then we just started sharing our journey, started adding value. Because there's no shortage of couples that are struggling in marriage, right? I mean, it is hard. It is so hard. And so, we just started adding value and offering help where we could. And people started to see, okay, yeah, they do know what they're talking about.
Oh, that's amazing. Relationships are not easy, right? Even the relationships with siblings or relationships with our children.
Yeah.
I don't think that there's any one relationship that is easy, other than, I believe, growing a relationship with God. I think it's just a matter of, making that time to get in the Word and building out those muscles, those spiritual muscles, and learning how to hear from Him, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you say you help transform stress marriages through femininity. I'm trying not to stumble on
Yeah.
that word. And God's love. Why do you believe these are the keys to restoration?
Yeah. So the masculine feminine dynamics in marriage are not something that's talked about often, especially in Christian circles. In fact, Adam and I, my husband, we tried to get help in this area. We realized that something was off in our marriage from the very beginning. And we would reach out, ask pastors, ask coaches, counselors, and nobody was able to explain it to us. And I think it's because they kind of are, they know that there's a biblical role, right? A husband says to lead and to love his wife. A wife is to submit to her husband. But there's nothing else really very clear about that. And so really what masculinity and femininity is the heart kind of, those are things to do, right? Submit or lead, love. But this is really the details behind that. What does it look like for you to do that? What is that? What is the posture? What is the heart posture behind it? And so when you have these dynamics that you're bringing this energy to your marriage, this feminine energy to your marriage, it skyrockets attraction. And when it's not there, it plummets attraction. It also really draws your husband toward you. I mean, that is what that's the way God created us, with these beautiful gifts, and they're different, and they go together so beautifully, right? A husband in his masculinity is strong, and he leads well, and he loves well, and he has a vision and a plan, and he handles his business, right? And so a wife can relax into that. Whereas so many women nowadays are stressed because they feel like they have to control everything. They feel like everything is on their shoulders when they're with a man who is not really living fully in his masculinity. And then it can cause the woman to not be able to really relax into her femininity either. And so she ends up stressed. She ends up unattracted to her husband. There's more fight. There's argument, right? They're just not meshing together in this beautiful way that God has designed us to. And so I think that's such a big key. And also we're seeing that this is becoming more and more of a problem than ever before for marriages. And then the God's love part, right? I think everything comes back to God's love. When we know how loved we are, that's when we're able to show up for any relationship in a more full way, able to love others better. It's when we are unsure of who we really are. We feel insecure. Are we loved? Do we matter? That's when we're needing other people to try to make us feel loved. And so we end up grasping for, getting that love however we can, instead of being able to out for that love from us because we already know how loved we are.
Yeah, I love that. It's kind of like getting your security, your identity, right, from
Mm-hmm.
God's love
Mm-hmm.
instead of from our spouses, or instead of from our surroundings or our accolades or what it is that we do.
Yeah.
One of the things that I want to ask is, what is femininity?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great question. One word, and I remember asking my husband, what do you need most from me? And he said, for you to be soft. And I was like, I don't know what does that mean to be soft? But when you start to think about that, right, the opposite of it is like a hard, right? And so it's this like criticalness, this I don't need you, right? I can take care of myself. That's kind of like this hard. And so the soft is the opposite of that, where you are open. You love when he helps you. You ask him for help. You have this relaxed energy where it's not this critical. He feels hyper vigilant to protect himself against, what is she going to think about this? What is she going to say about that? He can relax a little bit more as well because you are soft. It's also a very encouraging spirit. So it's like you are his biggest encourager. Men are always asking themselves, am I enough for my wife? And that softness is always letting him know, yes, you are, right? I love you. I support you. You're my man, right? They feel like, yeah, I'm her man, right? it's hard to describe really because it is really like an energy. You know, when you come into a room and there's tension, you can feel that. When you are around a woman who is soft versus hard, you can feel that too.
That's good. I love that. I think that's so powerful in just stating it in kind of like this energy. You can change the energy in a room, you can
Yep.
change the climate in your home. And I think that's really powerful, right? If we can kind of like, I guess, embrace our feminine aspects,
Mhm.
right? What are some of the common struggles you see in marriages today?
Hmm. I mean, this is really this is the big one, right? With femininity and masculinity, because they feed off of each other. So if a man he doesn't have his life together, he isn't handling his business, his wife feels like she has another child, right? That feeds off of each other. Then she gets upset. She starts criticizing. She starts treating him like another one of the kids. Well, that just actually leads to him acting even more like that, right? It doesn't build him up. But in the same way, he wants her to soften and relax into him. But when he isn't stepping up as a man and showing her that he is a strong, safe place for her to relax into, then she doesn't feel safe to do that. And so it is this cycle that is very hard to get out of. And it is a big issue. You even see this in the church. You see that men nowadays are more into the people pleasing nature instead of a strong, heroic man, right? Who's going to defend you. He's going to protect you. You see more of this kind of like a softer man who doesn't say much. He's just trying to keep the peace. He's a people pleaser. And so and you see more women who are stepping up, who feel they see that there is a need for leadership. And so they're like, hey, I have some gifts in that area. I'm going to just take over because there's nothing there. And so we see this, dynamic that is so off, especially for marriage. And it's really hard to break out of. And it causes issues in all the areas, and it causes issues in sex and intimacy. It causes issues in communication then in the marriage, and conflict. There's so much conflict. And so that is what we see a lot of, is we see people struggling with communication or with sex and intimacy or conflict. But really what's at the heart of it is a lot of this masculinity and femininity that is off.
What would you say is something that a woman can do to bring back and restore balance when it's off like that, right? Because
Mhm.
I know we can feel a bit discouraged if we're looking for, we're in this mess, or what have you, and you can feel a bit discouraged because you're waiting for that man to start leading, right? Well, he's not leading, so I'm just going to be here with my pride and all that. One of the great
Mhm.
verses that I like referencing is the Proverbs 31 woman, because if you look at her life, she was a leader, even though she was also submitting to her husband. I mean, you can see dynamic. I think we can still be leaders and not necessarily demasculate our men. So,
Mhm.
what would you say a woman can do if she's in that position that the man is just trying to keep the peace or ignoring or stonewalling, right? These are some of the terms that people use, right? Avoidance, all these things, right? They avoid, which dynamic are you, right? Where is your childhood trauma?
Yeah.
But sometimes it's about moving forward from where you're at and doing something with what you at. So one of the things I've gauged from just our conversation now is, of course, like having our identity and our love from God. So having God
Mhm.
fill us instead of the relationship. So after we've done that, after we confirm that, like, okay, I'm not looking for validation from my husband currently on anything because we're kind of like off balance. How can I
Mhm.
bring balance back into the relationship? Or if it's never been there, how can I change to bring change within my home and within my relationship?
Yeah, I mean, it's very similar to what you were saying, actually. So, yes, we get our need for love met with God, but we have these other needs, right? As women, if we want to relax into our femininity more, which that is the desire of our heart, right? We all desire this man or this, place that's strong and protective and we can relax into, and he's the hero, or, So how we can move forward and try to really go back into our femininity, even if our man is not in his masculinity, is to come back to God again and get our need for that masculinity, that because God is perfectly strong, right? He is perfectly protecting us. He is always safe for us, even when our men aren't. And so for us to go to him, and I love to ask God, if I'm struggling, I'm like, how do you want to be a strong place for me today? And when I get that need met and I see how strong he is for me, that allows me to, again, relax more into my femininity. And I love what you said too, because yeah, we're not saying women aren't strong or women cannot lead things, right? They are, and they're absolutely so gifted in so many ways. But in the marriage dynamic, if a woman is really strong, a man should be able to match that. Like he should be able to then match that, become, still be the stronger leader there, right? Because she still needs someone to relax into, even though she might have those gifts or she might, have that strength. So, yeah, going to get those needs met from God is so, so important in taking those steps to try to come back to balance in this area.
What do you think is kind of like, first of all, definitely powerful in, finding our strength in the Lord,
Hmm.
but sometimes life be lifing.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to navigate tough choices, right? What would you say is kind of like one small step that that the woman can make, because we have a lot of women, or the person can make in restoration, in that connection and feeling more connected? What would you say she, does she play avoidance? Does she not nag, right? Because women can often, when they're in this conflict, they can often be criticized as nags, right?
Hmm.
Well, you're nagging me, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's another one. And then what does the Bible say about that? It's better to live in the roof of a home with all the
Yeah.
elements than with a nagging wife, right? Or even a nagging spouse, I would say.
Yes.
I
No,
think it
that's
goes
true,
both ways,
actually. Yep. Yep.
right? So what would
Yeah.
you think is like one small step? Okay, she's grounded, boom. What would be that next step into
Yeah.
restoring connection? Of course,
Yeah.
booking a call with you, but
Yes.
but before
Yeah,
that,
because like you said, it is so hard. Like I can talk about this and it make it sound so easy, but I know it's not easy because I have walked through this myself and it is so hard. So really I think the best next step is to name what you're feeling. Recognize the emotions that you're feeling. This is so important because often I see wives that are really full of resentment and bitterness because they have had to just kind of push the feelings down and just try to keep going, right? If you have kids and you have commitments, it's like, I don't necessarily have the time to deal with this crazy marriage stress, right? I have stuff to do. And so, naming your emotion, allowing yourself to feel it, and then bring it to him. And I'll tell you, there are some magic words that help men feel so strong in your marriage. It's, can you help me with this? Right? If I say to him, like, I'm feeling so disappointed right now. And to really do this without blame, right? I don't want to say, I feel like you're the worst husband in the world. I feel like you prioritize your work all over our family, right? Because that's not actually a feeling, right? That's a thought. So I feel disappointed. I feel lonely. I feel discouraged, whatever it is, right? And then add those magic words too after you're done sharing your emotions, because a strong man loves this. A man who's maybe struggling with his masculinity, he might be a little intimidated by this, but you sharing your emotion. But if you share your emotion in a soft way, without that masculine energy, and then ask for his help with it, he's like, ooh, he has a place to step up. He sees you believing that he can give you a solution. And so just that belief in him and you coming to him, that is you relaxing into him, right? Because you're saying, I want your help. I know that you can help me, or I believe that you might be able to help me. And so those are like some really awesome magic words you can add.
that's powerful. Learning how to approach the conversation, right? I know one of the things that I like to do when I'm going through any type of trouble is number one, prayer and journaling. Like I have noticed that sometimes there's some situations that just God just handles it. Either he handles you or he handles them, right? I don't know if you've experienced that before, but what is one misconception about marriage that you'd love to debunk?
Hmm. Well, I think even though we might think we don't believe this, I think so many of us believe that marriage just shouldn't be this hard, right? And that is a thought that comes in, right? And then we think it spirals into like, maybe I'm with the wrong man. Maybe I need to, end this. Maybe we need a separation. It is not a helpful path to walk down, but it happens because we don't realize that, yes, marriage actually is this hard. It is this exhausting. It takes this much work. It really does. And when you think about it, this is the closest relationship. This relationship is unlike any other. And yeah, it does take work, just like it takes work to have a mother-son relationship, a mother-daughter relationship. Those parenting relationships are hard as well, right? And it takes energy and effort. And sometimes we actually give more energy to our children than we do to our spouse. And that could be for various reasons, probably because there's a lot of pain there, right? And we're trying to get away from that pain for a bit. And so we focus on our kids. But that's the truth is that marriage really is. It really does take that much work, but the goal is for it to be a beautiful growth journey. That is my goal for the couples that we work with, that they celebrate the little wins, that they see the way that God is growing them and brings them so much joy through this growth process. Because I don't believe that marriage is meant to be this journey of just struggle all the time and hardship or loneliness or discouragement. I believe that God has some of the most amazing stuff for us in marriage. It's just putting the effort in to get to that place.
Amen. Putting
Mhm.
the effort in. Hallelujah. It takes time, it takes patience, it takes knowledge. It takes shifting perspectives. And I think that's the hardest part is kind of like, I don't believe there's anything wrong with me. I think it's them. I think I'm
Yeah.
pretty, I think I can handle whatever. Like, you just need to talk to me. But I think that why marriage can be so hard, also beautiful, very, very beautiful, is that people are seeing you for real, right? You're both seeing each other. You're seeing every type of facet side from the gorgeous to the ugly. Y'all seeing it all, right?
Mhm.
From the toothpaste to the mini, you know, to even like what's going on with chores, right? You're seeing
Mhm.
it all,
Yeah.
and I think that's the hardest part is kind of like confronting ourselves. They say that the woman is like a mirror towards the man. Do you believe that? Do you believe that the woman is kind of like that mirrors the man? Because that's one of the things that I hear on social media.
Like she mirrors what he believes about himself, or she mirrors like his struggles, or in what way?
Like, yeah, like she mirrors his energy. Some
Oh,
of the things
okay.
I hear.
I often think that it's the opposite. I often think that the husband sometimes mirrors the wife, right? That I've seen that where the home in general mirrors the wife, right? The kids even what energy the wife is bringing is the energy that the entire family then feeds off of. That's more actually of what I've seen. I mean, if a man is stepping into his masculinity and he is leading well, then yes, I think that actually would be a beautiful thing, for you to be bringing this awesome, incredible energy into your family and then everybody being able to then, follow that. But I don't know if I see that as often.
Another thing that I'm seeing on social media is, how you're saying relationships are hard. One of the things that I'm seeing is kind of like people guilt tripping the people that say relationships are, oh, my relationship is perfect.
Mm,
Everything is beautiful in my marriage, you
yeah.
know, but I see you shaking your head.
Yeah.
I think there's two ends, right? There's one like, oh, it's hard, and one that, oh, it's not hard. It shouldn't be hard. Then you're with the wrong person, like you were talking about. And I love that you kind of like debunk that, because I truly, more than often, I speak with a lot of women, and more than often, everyone that has been in a marriage or a relationship goes through the bump in the road.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, I think the thing is, your marriage might seem peaceful and, happy-go-lucky if you're maybe not getting into some of the deeper issues, right? I think there's some people that are really, they love relationships that are deep. They love growth, right? They're doing their own personal growth. Those relationships, I think, are going to enjoy just incredible growth and beauty and purpose. But then I also think there's relationships where maybe, yeah, they're not even talking about some of these things that are below surface level. And their whole goal is really like to just kind of keep the peace. So it may seem from the outside that everything is fine. But there's so much that is going on personally, maybe for each person that they're not even digging into and in the relationship. But I mean, honestly, I think that is one of the most toxic things is for people to give the picture that their marriage is just perfect. I mean, that is never our goal. I mean, we do social media heavily, but I try to never put that image up because it's so hard at what I think that the hardest thing I see for couples that are struggling is they feel alone, right? They feel ashamed to admit it, or they feel, just isolated in the struggle. And the thing is, they're not alone, right? They're so not alone. And I think it would be so comforting if they could see really that how many struggles other people are going through as well.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's something that we as people and have to really be cognizant of the energy we're putting out there, as far like you said, it's really toxic in portraying something like, oh, marriage shouldn't be hard. It's super, super easy when you're two different people, two different perspectives, two different baggages, two
Yeah.
different, whatever traumas you're bringing in,
Yeah.
because everyone has a history, some and trauma doesn't mean like this deep trauma. It could be simply that something hit you hard. And so now you communicate differently because you're a bit sensitive. And so you want to keep that peace. So you don't articulate your feelings as much because you know how sensitive you can get, right?
Yep.
So I think it's kind of like being realistic that it's about two people coming together and going through the muck and the mud and the hard and coming out the other side refined. Iron
Hmm.
sharpens iron.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
Right?
Hmm.
So you and your husband are building a business together while homeschooling and homesteading. How do you manage it all?
Oh my, it's not always well, I'll tell you that. I think the biggest thing, and this one word is the biggest key to it all, and it is intentionally, right? Very intentionally. I intentionally spend time with my kids. I intentionally take time to rest myself or to spend time with God myself. We intentionally set aside time for our marriage, right? We have to be very intentional because if we're not, things will slip through the cracks. And they have slipped through the cracks. So, yeah, it's just something that you just take. I always tell myself just one day at a time, right? Just one day at a time, because otherwise it can feel very overwhelming.
Absolutely. I really believe in the power of habits, right? So I love what you
Mhm.
said about intention, because you have to be intention of having those habits that bring about the results that you're wanting.
Mhm.
And intentionality is key in business, in home life, and relationships. I love that. What would you say is like one of the biggest challenges of working together? And then how did you overcome it?
Oh, oh man. And I'll tell you, I think there is so much purpose in what we're doing because we have felt extra just attacks on our marriage, to be honest with you, when we started this. And we're like, what is going on? Like, why? Things that just have come out of nowhere, or little things that just seem to explode. But I think that the biggest struggle is just communication, right? Just so much communication. And sometimes we struggle with that. And so we've had to learn the hard way. Um, okay, we need to communicate about that better. Okay, this is an area that I just need to drop, or this is just I need to come at it in a different way. Because yeah, you are working so closely together, and you can get very upset with the different ways they're showing up, or the effort that they're giving in, or just the miscommunications that happen.
Even in my own marriage, miscommunication has definitely, I feel like miscommunication can be kind of like slightly attacks because there's a lie that you're believing. And one of the things that I've recently been doing, before like questioning my husband or going to my husband, like, hey, what do you keeping him up at night, right? What did you just say? Like, right? If I can't sleep, you can't either, right? Before I go into that spiel, I go into what is the lie that I'm believing? What is the lie that I'm believing? And I go into it and I'm like, okay, why do I feel this way? And I ask God in prayer, I was like, God, please reveal to me the lie that I'm believing, or please reveal to me the belief around this, right? The truth shall set you free. I actually was in my Bible this morning. I believe it's in John chapter 8, and it's like the truth shall set you free. And it's one of the verses, it's currently one of my life verses, just because whenever we feel offended, there is a lie that we're believing. That's one of the revelations that I received. It's kind of like, if ever I feel offended on what he said or did, first, I ask God, like, hey, God, what is the lie that I'm believing here? And then two, I ask, is this something I need to talk about in order for me to feel at peace that I've spoken about something, right? Communicated like, hey, that hurt me, because before I really didn't share the things that did hurt me.
Yeah.
And you know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't really share the things that did hurt me. And I would kind of be like, everything is fine. Because I will sweep it under the rug. And I've learned that that really isn't helping him understand where he's at in the relationship as well, right?
I mean, it is. Part of communication it's getting into some of the like real stuff that you might be uncomfortable sharing. You might feel, and that is a great question to ask too, is like, why do I not want to share these things, right? Why is that my go-to, is to just kind of hold back instead of openly share and just kind of explore that. But yeah, because if we don't open ourselves up vulnerably, then we miss so much of the intimacy in marriage, the emotional intimacy, the spiritual intimacy, right? And it does trickle into the physical intimacy too. So it's actually a big part of that connection that we have, is to be so open and vulnerable.
Yes, yes. As I'm learning on my own relationship and, learning how to communicate with my husband's, we're two different people. And one of the things that I had to do is be like, hey, I am all in. Like, I'm all in on here. I want to be right with God on this. I want to do the right thing for God on this. So instead of switching like, oh, I'm doing all these things for this man, what I started doing is kind of like switching my thinking and be like, how can I honor God in this situation? And so from that, it led to God showing me where I wasn't opening up, and showing me kind of like, in me not opening up, also, he's not getting any guidance or direction. And so, yeah, he thinks everything is fine because I'm not opening up in a soft way, in a way that's like, hey, this hurt me. And not in a way like, oh, you just hurt me right there, buddy.
Yeah. Yeah. hmm
But in a way of vulnerability and femininity, as you were saying. And I believe that's very powerful. What are 3 small habits that can bring more joy into a marriage?
Yeah. I think we always need more joy in marriage, right? I think this is such a great question because marriage can get so it can get so mundane, right? It can be like so robotic even at times. And so to add more joy, and that's kind of an individual thing, like what do you guys love to do together? But I think one thing is do something new together, whether it's, you know, go on a date to a new place or, watch a new show or make a new meal together or just, you might think it's such a small thing, but adding that newness in, it brings new energy into your marriage. And it's so fun. It's so fun to try new things together. And I think it also really bonds you. It brings you back to that connected place. I also think that, a big thing is show that you are pursuing your spouse, right? Don't stop pursuing them. And, it can be easy to take them for granted. It can be so easy. And show it by showing them that you are pursuing and that they matter to you. I think it's nice to like, if you don't know what their biggest ways of feeling loved, what is that? What is their love language? Do they really appreciate when you give them words of affirmation and tell them like, hey, I appreciate this about you. That's my husband's. And it's my absolute least. I do not appreciate words of affirmation at all, but that is his most, that is his highest need. And I'm like, oh goodness. But when I do that for him, it means so much. It shows him, hey, I matter to her. She is pursuing me because she knows this is what means the most to me. And then when he does that for me as well, and he goes out of his way to do maybe not what's easiest for him or what he would prefer, but he does something that really shows me, hey, I see you. You matter to me. That makes such a big difference in marriage. The third one, I just think that having a weekly date, whether you have a date night in, whether you're doing like we do a weekly check-in with each other, and it's beside our date night. We also do a date night because sometimes actually the weekly check-in can bring some heated conversations. Because what it is we ask each other deeper questions, right? We go into some of the hard stuff in marriage instead of just, hey, how's your day? How's work going? Here's what the kids have to do. Here's what's on our schedule. No, this is like some of the deep stuff like, is there any bitterness or resentment in your heart right now? Right? We ask some deep questions. So I think that's needed too. But where it's something fun, do something fun where it's you set aside this time. For us, it's Friday nights. I look forward to Friday night all week because I know it is a fun thing. And as a mom of five and homesteader and all that, I don't often do fun things just for me. And so it's just a fun thing that you get to do together. So make sure you both love the date, whatever it is, and then add that, where you're trying new things too. That's a great time to try new things is in your date.
I love that. Setting time for our spouses, intentional time, as you said before, right? I love that.
Mhm.
I think that can definitely shift the energy on both parties, right?
Mhm.
And I remember one of the things like that we discussed with, Franklin and I discussed was that we were going to do weekly check-ins and we were going to do 2 dates a month. One date was for us that we go out once a month. And then one date was for the kids just because of how our schedules is, all of
Yeah.
that. So we
Mhm.
decided to like one family date with the family and then just us dating and then prioritizing once a week those check-ins like, hey, what's going on? How do you feel most loved? How do and do you believe in the love languages? Have you read the book, The Five Love Languages?
Yes, yeah, I do. I do. I think that, and I also think that your love languages can shift. I've seen that in our marriage, which is it's so interesting. But I do believe that when we started to meet each other's love languages, it really changed so much because, your husband might think, yeah, I love my wife well. I do this for her. I unload the dishwasher every day. And then you're like, no, my love language is like quality time or, gifts. And you're totally missing that, right? And it can be really hurtful.
Yes. Yes. I mean, so that's one of the things that I have learned is that there's two types of love languages in our relationship. I don't know about anybody else's, but what I've learned is how you show that you love and how you receive love.
Mhm.
So one of the things that I have seen is the way, like, my husband is an acts of service guy because he's all in. He definitely shows his love with his acts of service. He helps me so much around the house and stuff like that. But that's not where I felt the most loved, right?
Mhm.
But that's how he showed love.
Mhm.
But this is the thing. I would do acts of service for him as well, but I didn't feel most love there. I felt most love in quality time. But that did not reflect in the love language, like because we both took the quiz. Maybe it
Mhm.
changed over the years. I don't know,
Mhm.
because that was a few years back when my kids were a little bit smaller, and I made him
Mhm.
take the test. But I noticed with him, it is acts of service. Like, maybe he's all acts of service. Maybe if I do acts of service, I don't know. I'm still figuring him out.
Yeah.
But I have learned that the way that he displays that he loves is with acts of service. Like,
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah.
so I had to really figure that one out. I was like, wait, my test came acts of service. That's how I show someone that I love them, not necessarily
Mhm.
how I feel love. Does that make
Mhm.
sense?
Yeah.
How about you?
No,
What's yours?
mine is quality time. Um, it used to be gifts, higher than quality time, and now it's more quality time and actually physical. What is it? Physical, is
Touch.
that? Yeah, physical
Yep.
touch. Yeah. Physical touch used to be pretty low for me, and that one is way higher now. So it's so interesting. It's kind of cool to see how you grow. I mean, we do. That's the thing about marriage is the person that you marry is not the same person that you're going to be married to for years and years and years, right? They are going to grow, they're going to change. And you have to say, hey, I'm committed no matter how they change, no matter who they are, because you can't expect the same person from 20 years ago to never change, right?
That's interesting. They say that people change every 7 years.
Yeah.
That's what they say. I don't know, something about your body rejuvenates. Like
Mhm.
everything has a system, a season,
Yeah.
right? I think that's so powerful and so insightful on just having that intentionality and learning your person. I believe in the Bible, it says kind of like, for us to kind of like know our spouse, right? It says meant for to know their wives, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, you
I
could
don't
have
know what.
known me, dude. Just
Yeah.
kidding.
Yeah. I don't know if it was in a movie or what, but I know there's some saying because we have said that to each other, my husband and I, where it's like, I don't want to just get my high school diploma on you. I want to get my college degree. I want to get my master's degree. I want to get my doctorate degree in learning you, right? In knowing
Yes.
you, so that you never stop wanting to learn more about your spouse.
Yes. And one of the things that my husband said recently to me too was like, I'm knowing you a lot better now. And this is us over the hump of we had of our hurdles that we've ever had in our relationship. And it was because of, I think there's so much to say when it comes to kids. And we can talk about this all day, but we only have 5 more minutes. And
Mhm.
I am now doing this new thing of a rapid fire round. So are you ready?
Yeah.
All right, coffee or tea?
Tea.
Early bird or night owl?
I'd say night owl.
Favorite Bible verse?
I would say be still and know that I am God.
Oh, that's a good one. One word to describe your marriage.
I would say committed.
Dream vacation spot.
Fiji.
Ooh, have you been there?
No.
Ooh, that's a good one. If you could
Yeah.
have dinner with one person from history, who would it be? And other than Jesus, because we all want to sit down with Jesus.
Mhm. My first thought is Benjamin Franklin, which is such an odd thought, but he actually was if you look into his life, I read, this is what I get from being a homeschooling mom, because I read with my kids about Benjamin Franklin and I'm fascinated by him. So I guess that's who it is today.
Okay, I mean, that's $100 bill right there.
That's right.
Thank you so much, Cara. Welcome to the show. Thank you for tuning. Where can people find you?
Yeah. So you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Threads. We have a podcast as well called the Marriage Unmasked podcast. And we also have a website, thewayforlove.com. So you can learn more about us there as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.